Yeah, we're just gonna have to use that thumbnail right now. Welcome back, everyone, to the podcast. Hello, everybody that has just tuned in. By the way, the background music that you are hearing is brought to you by White Bat Audio. Credits go to Carl Casey for providing copyright-free, royalty-free background music for live streamers and creators. He's not paying me. He's not telling me to promote his music, their music. I don't know who they are, but this channel I just learned about, they do provide copyright-free, royalty-free music for live streamers and creators. Once again, that is White Bat Audio. These credits go to Carl Casey from White Bat Audio. Once again, thank you guys for joining this afternoon, this morning, whenever you're watching. It is currently 11:04 over here on the East Coast as we are streaming this podcast. So let's get into the topic at hand. Yesterday, I brought you the situation that is coming out of East Palestine, Ohio, in regards to the train derailment, right? There's been a few updates, and I'm going to be playing some interviews with the locals of East Palestine because there was a town hall meeting last night that was designated just for what happened. Now, I'm going to play the commentary. I want to play the videos first, and then I'm going to be giving my commentary because I do have my thoughts, and I have been looking deeper into this corporation, Norfolk Southern, the company that operated this train. We're going to be getting into them, but to add context to what we're talking about, the following piece is coming from News Nation, East Palestine resident. Quote, "They're not answering questions. They're not answering questions." Referring to Norfolk Southern. Norfolk Southern. Copyright disclaimer, Section 107 of Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarships, education, and research. Again, the following piece is coming from News Nation. The residents of East Palestine, Ohio, are claiming they are not answering anything. Let's listen to what this man has to say.
have information for you at this community meeting that explains some of what you're dealing with there?
Not that I could hear at all. I mean, all you heard was a bunch of yelling, and everybody ended up having to go their separate ways and go up into the auditorium stairs, and then people down there getting to go one at a time to talk. It's really, they're not answering anything from what I've seen at all.
Now, you think it's because they don't know, or they don't want you to know? Did they have any kind of explanation to back up their feeling that there's no more risk?
Oh, they don't want us to know. I mean, I know this personally because my house is 6 foot away from the creek when I go out my front door. And just recently, today, we were called by the railroad, and they offered us to move out of our home permanently.
What does that mean, offered you to move out? They're making you an offer on the house? What are they offering you?
Well, we rent right now, and they're offering to get us a new place and get us a couple months rent. And I'm not sure if it includes furniture or anything, that we're not taking anything from the house. But they understood after the toxologist came to our house that we have a unique situation with water runoff into our basement.
So, well, look, if you're lucky, in terms of your neighbors, it's unique. Maybe it isn't. That's why we need answers. Right. So nobody at this meeting could tell you anything about why they think this accident happened, or even if it is an accident, and why they believe it's safe to go back, except for special circumstances like your own.
All I've heard is air. The air's fine.
Yeah, but they can't tell you why.
That's
all right,
really,
let's do this. You got to let me know off.
Okay, so let's pause it right there. You just heard this man say that owned a house just feet away from the creek in East Palestine. Last night's meeting consisted of a bunch of angry residents of East Palestine, Ohio. And now this man is being offered money to move permanently. Mind you, Norfolk Southern withdrew from attending the meeting in East Palestine. According to what they're saying, they're fearing the safety for their workers. Well, what about the people that actually live in that town? The 5,000 residents that this is actually affecting right now that cannot bathe. They can't give their kids baths. They can't cook with water. Mind you, Norfolk Southern said that they may be responsible, their own words, not mine, for what has happened. So you don't want to put your employees at the risk of what you caused, that you were ultimately responsible for. Folks, like I said before, this was not a coincidence. You cannot tell me otherwise. This whole thing, in my opinion, and disclaimer, anything that I say on this platform is simply my opinion and my viewpoint. This was planned. So the next piece of commentary that I'm going to bring to you, you are going to hear how Norfolk Southern bails out of the meeting of East Palestine, Ohio, this town meeting that they had last night, the same company that sent their train through this town. According to Ohio Governor McWine, he was unaware that the train was even coming through the area, nor was it carrying toxic carcinogens. He was unaware of this. But again, the following commentary is coming from WBNS 10 TV. Norfolk Southern bails out of meeting with frustrated East Palestine residents.
Do not pay for another.
Tonight, CBS News reporting that East Palestine train that went off the railroad tracks actually broke down 2 days prior to that derailment. And employees say there were concerns about.
We're also going to be talking about that. The same
disputing that, saying the weight was uniform throughout.
Okay, so let me pause right there. I'm going to be getting back to this commentary, but the same train that derailed in East Palestine broke down just 2 days before this happened.
And a longer and heavier train ran that same route in the past. This new information comes as tensions flare.
This was a huge train. It was carrying more than one. It was like 156 cars, and it weighed 18,000 tons. 156 cars. This train was pulling. There's a lot of controversy around that too. We're going to be getting into that.
Residents and government officials.
Norfolk Southern planned to be there, but backed out at the last minute because of what they called a growing physical threat to its employees. 10 TV's Richard Solomon is here in studio with us tonight with the main questions those residents
Let's repeat
asked.
that again.
Richard, growing physical threat to its employees. Planned to be there, but backed out at the last minute because of what they called a growing fitness.
This new information comes as tensions flare tonight at a town hall between residents and government officials.
Norfolk Southern planned to be there, but backed out at the last minute because of what they called a growing physical threat to its employees. 10 TV's Richard Solomon is here in studio with us tonight with the main questions those residents asked. Richard?
Yeah, Yolanda, Andrew, East Palestine leaders say Norfolk Southern is working to fix the problem right now, but if that stops at any point in time, they will hold them accountable. The main thing people wanted to know tonight was, is this area safe? With questions needing answers.
There was two options. It was either we blow it up or it blows up itself.
So when this train derailment happened in East Palestine, again, we had, I think, 10 cars carrying these chemicals that were found from World War I. Used in World War I, the same chemicals, carcinogens. That's what they're called. It has a bunch of terminology. I don't know. I'm not going to get into it, but needless to say, the only two options that they had was to blow up these cars in a controlled way, or let them burn out and basically explode and turn into a fucking nuke. So it's kind of like pick your poison, no pun intended. I'm not trying to be crude. Pick your poison. You either let the cars burn in a controlled way, or you let them blow up on their own, which would be worse. So the residents of this town didn't have options. Some are arguing that it could have been handled in a different manner, and by releasing these chemicals in the air, even though they're saying, oh, it's safe to return to East Palestine. Come on, go ahead. Come on back, y'all. After a fucking nuclear bomb just basically went off. It may be a little bit cloudy for a couple more days, but you know, the air quality is fine. There are toxins in the water. We can't tell you how much, but they're at life-threatening levels. So go ahead and come on back. to East Palestine. You expect me to believe that? Anybody that lives in this area of East Palestine, Ohio, even for the people living at the PA border near this town or anywhere in that region, I would suggest that you get as far away from this area as possible. You don't want to be there. Trust me, in the long term, it will pay off.
East Palestine brought them in front of city and state health leaders, hoping to find common ground. State health leaders say the water is safe to drink. Residents, however, say they're not.
The state leaders are saying that the water is safe to drink. Now, this is where they're making contradictory statements, because we just heard the governor of Ohio, Governor McWine, just said in 2 different interviews, oh, yeah, come on back. It's okay. The water's safe to drink. And then when he was asked the first time, would you drink the water? He said, no, I would drink bottled water. And then in the second interview, you hear him say, would you and your family drink this water? Whenever the interviewer asked him, he said, yeah, I would. So which one is it? We're hearing 2 different things. Fish are dying in the water, y'all. They're dropping dead. They're turning over. Chickens just frozen, mysteriously died, went out just like that, right where they are. There's video footage of this on the internet, and then they're telling people to come back to this town. Oh, it's okay, it's safe. No, it's not.
Not fully convinced. On Wednesday, testing results were returned to the Ohio EPA. The results show no detection of contaminants in water from the wells in the city's water system. However, 3,500 small fish have already died from the spill.
We are screening for them broadly and using
3,500 fish have died already. Now, this goes further than Ohio. You may be thinking, well, this doesn't affect me. I'm not in Ohio. Here's the thing. This has contaminated the Ohio River. And they're saying that it's going downstream, but at such low levels that it doesn't pose a threat. The Ohio River is the main water supply for people in Ohio, northern Kentucky. This goes further than Ohio. Cincinnati, Wheeling, Louisville, towns along the Ohio and Kentucky border, Indiana. This is a bigger deal than what people are thinking it is. And what tops it off and makes it weird, we discussed this yesterday, the Netflix film White Noise, which, mind you, was filmed 4 months just before this happened. It was released in, I believe, August 2022. Residents from the same town of East Palestine, Ohio, a family, started in the same film, White Noise. Now, what are the chances of that happening? That you starring in a film where, coincidentally enough, it was a natural disaster in the same way, and now 4 months later, you're living the real thing. I can only imagine what these families are going through. Anyone in that town of East Palestine. These government officials do not care about you. They're telling you all 2 different things.
Very sophisticated equipment to check the air to see if, in fact,
those chemical suppressant levels said to be harmful to human beings.
Norfolk Southern announced Tuesday that it is.
Now, the East Palestine mayor, in this video, you can see him raising his concerns. He is holding Norfolk Southern accountable for what has happened in their town. They have agreed they may be responsible for it, but they will clean it up. They will take care of it. They've been doing tests in people's homes to detect carbon monoxide. And they said that no levels were found, but the residents of East Palestine, Ohio, complain of symptoms such as runny nose, coughing, vomiting, nausea, headaches that are nagging and last all day, right? They see fish dead in the water. Their chickens and dogs, cats, animals, people, children are getting sick, being taken to the doctor. Guys, yesterday, I called my cousin that lives in Fairborn, Ohio. Fairborn, Ohio, which is nowhere near East Palestine. It is a Columbus suburb, or I'm sorry, a Dayton suburb near Dayton, Ohio. She was in the doctor yesterday because she was getting sharp pains in her head. Now, mind you, I'm sure that she doesn't, I'm not going to say her name. She doesn't mind me putting her information out there like this, but it's well known. She's had neurological problems in the past. So when she told me that, I'm wondering, well, I was thinking, could that have been a side effect of what is happening? She said, "Oh no, that's on the east coast of Ohio. That's far away. That's like 300 miles away from us." 300 miles ain't shit. And then when she went to the doctor, they were telling her it was because of an allergy infection. Sharp pains through your skull. That's how she was just describing it to me as. I knew I felt the need to call her. This was near Dayton, Ohio.
It is creating a $1 million fund to help the community, nearly made of 5,000 people.
I'm concerned, but, it's not Norfolk Southern here, it's the EPA, the people that have been working with us, trying to get our citizens back to food safe. That's what we need right now. We need our citizens to food safe in their own hands.
And Governor DeWine puts all the blame on the rail company and says they should be paying for everything. Ohio Senators Sherrod Brown and J.D. Vance sent letters to the EAP and the NTSB demanding answers about what happened.
Guys,
the chemicals themselves weren't from World War I, but
more fallout from that massive train derailment in Ohio. Many locals growing in
Okay. The chemicals themselves weren't from World War I, but they were burned off to produce. Yeah, that's what I meant. So with this next piece of information, let's see. Let's now talk about how this train broke down just 2 days before this happened. 2 days before this happened. And this is coming from, I believe, NBC.com, CBS.com. Excess size caused train to break down in days before it derailed in East Palestine. A former employee, or I don't know, a current employee, I'm guessing they're still employed. I've already read this. So you have the employees coming out and speaking about what has happened here in Ohio. So get this, when the Norfolk Southern train 32N derailed in Ohio earlier this month, it was not the first time it had experienced problems on the route. The train, which originated from Madison, Illinois, on the evening of February 1st, broke down. Let's get this stuff out of the way. At least once before the derailing in East Palestine, Ohio, on February 3rd, according to employees familiar with the matter. The employees say there were concerns among those working on the train over what they believed was the excessive length. I spoke about this before. Again, it was 151 cars long. 151 cars, 9,300 feet, and 18,000 tons before it reached East Palestine, which contributed to both the initial breakdown and derailment. In the 2 weeks since, many residents who were home at the time of the derailment or who returned after the authorities conducted a toxic release of the hazardous chemicals on board have told CBS News that they are suffering from headaches, rashes, respiratory problems, and painful coughing. Quote, "We shouldn't be running trains that are 150 cars length long," one of the employees of Norfolk Southern said. "There should be some limitations to the weight and the length of the train. In this case, if the train had not been 18,000 tons, it's very likely the effects of the derailment would have been migrated." Well, I mean, it was going to happen somewhere. So, I mean, it shouldn't be running 18,000 tons to begin with. 150 cars long. Again, I'm not familiar with trains, but I know that is a big ass bearing. Norfolk Southern CEO Alan Shaw declined an interview. In a statement to CBS News, a company spokesperson said the weight distribution of the train was uniform throughout and included a mid-train locomotive, which helps manage the dynamic force of the train and reduces mechanical issues. Assigning a reputation to a train that influences by thousands of tons on a regular basis is inaccurate, the spokesperson said of the observations about the train's length, weight, adding the longer and heavier the train used to run the route before it spilt into two shorter, lighter trains in the past month as part of a regular review. Still the long, according to Sarah Thimberg, who served as an administrator for the Federal Railroad Administration, FRA, from 2015 to 2017. When I was an FRA administrator, I was not happy with the length of trains that were 80 to 90 cars long. So anything to be 80 cars to 90 cars long is considered to be excessive already. We're talking about a train with 150 cars long, twice that length. Wow. Finberg said that trains are more efficient with the railway companies and its executives, but more challenging for the crew tasked with managing repairs during mid-route, a job that requires walking the length of the train to identify problems. Oh, wow. So you have to go through 150 cars if something goes haywire to figure out what is wrong. The workers are exhausted times for car inspections have been drastically cut, and there are no regulations on the size of these trains, said one employee. Thanks to Mr. Donald Trump's administration, which Biden has yet to fix, even though he promised to do so. But now, after this train derailment in East Palestine, now Biden's wanting to say, oh, climate control this and climate control that. The dangers of false narratives of climate control. Kiss. You see what they're doing? They're gaslighting y'all. They're gaslighting the public into thinking, oh, climate control, weather control, controlled weather, this, that, and the other. Not listening to the people in the community that are saying that, hey, something is seriously wrong here. In East Palestine, Ohio, 38 train cars derailed, causing a fire that damaged an additional 12 cars on Sunday. Norfolk Southern gave an environmental agency list of the train's contents that showed 11 of the cars that derailed contained hazardous materials, known carcinogens, vinyl chloride, and something else I can't pronounce, but it's deadly, it's lethal. It causes long-term health effects. The National Transportation Safety Board is currently investigating the derailment. In a statement Tuesday, the agency said that it had identified and examined the rail car that initiated the derailment. Now, I saw a video of the car that they're talking about. It was seen a few towns over in Ohio on camera with the wheel on fire. We're going to be getting into that too. I'm going to be showing you guys that. The derailment has shined a spotlight on Precision Scheduling Railroad, or PSR, a strategy that has been widely adopted across the railroad industry and has intended to increase the efficiency and reduce of cost. Norfolk Southern implemented PRS back in 2019. So just 2 days before, this train broke down, this rogue train, the rogue train that no one saw coming, that no one knew what was carrying, came through the little town of East Palestine, Ohio, and derailed. So let's listen now to what Governor McWine has to say about what has happened. Again, thank you for joining. If you have tuned in, be sure to like the video on your way in. Good morning. I hope that you have your tea and coffee available. I would drink it. So here you're going to hear Ohio Governor Mike DeWine, Ohio's Governor Mike DeWine, saying that he would drink the water in East Palestine if it was him. "10 hours ago, ABC News is the source." Again, if you want to go see the initial interview, go over to their network.
If you Walmart.
Sorry about that. Turn off my camera and...
Ohio, where the questions about the air and water quality are mounting after that train.
Sorry, guys.
Derailment 12 days ago and the controlled burn that may have put a toxic cloud of chemicals into the air. The EPA administrator will visit East Palestine tomorrow. The Ohio EPA says the water is safe to drink, but is still urging some residents to use bottled water. And tonight, officials there are hosting a town hall for frustrated residents. Let's bring in Alex Frichet on the ground in Ohio. Alex, you spoke with the governor a short time ago, and we'll have that conversation in a moment. But first, you've been on the ground talking with residents who are letting their frustration.
The governor giving some clarity on that in our conversation earlier. Take a listen. Governor Mike DeWine, I want to thank you for joining us this evening. But first, I want to dive in on a statement that your office released earlier today. You said that there is no detection of contaminants in raw water from the 5 wells that feed into
There are no detections of contaminants in the well water. This is what Governor Mike DeWine is saying.
East Palestine's municipal water system. The Ohio EPA is confident that the municipal water is safe to drink.
The municipal water is safe to drink. Does that mean the city water system?
Are you confident enough, sir, that you yourself would drink it?
Absolutely. If I was there right now, I would drink it. If I was there right now, I would drink it. There right now, I would drink it. Absolutely. If I was there right now, I would drink it. Absolutely. If I was there right now, I would drink it. Absolutely. If I was there right now, I would drink it.
Would drink it.
Absolutely. If I was there right now, I would drink it. Look, the experts told us, they said, look, it's very, it would be a long shot if there's any problem with this water, because these are deep wells that feed people, that feed the municipal water supply there. But they, we said, look, we got to test them anyway. And so we did test them. We tested all 5 of the wells, and they all came back as good. Now, people who have their own private well, we're suggesting, sometimes those are a lot more shallow. We're suggesting that they not drink that water until they've had it tested. And so we will test free, come in and test their water. And so that process is now going on.
One of the things that we've heard from residents.
So he would drink the water, but he doesn't live in the town. See, you have the EPA playing good cop, saying that, hey, this is the chemicals that were on that train, just so y'all know, in a nice, polite way of saying, hey, your town was basically nuked, but you can return back to it. The water is safe to drink. We did testing on it. It's okay. You can drink it. You can bathe in it. Meanwhile, people are suffering from headaches, nausea, vomiting. If they were completely confident about having people go back to this town and drink the water, why are they also in the same sentencing advising you to get it tested? Again, if you live in this region in Ohio, I'm not trying to fearmonger. I'm just speaking common sense. If I were you, I would get as far away from this place as possible. I know that's easier said than done, and I know it's a heartbreaking situation for a lot of people that live and own property there, that grew up in that town, that own land. This is why a lot of people are upset. They can't just up and leave. They had their entire lives rooted there. Farmers lived there with their crops, and now all of that has been destroyed because of this chemical disaster caused by a train derailment. And guys, this is not the only train derailment that's been going on. There's been other train derailments, these bomb trains, what people are now calling, that are carrying toxic chemicals Why, you may ask, why there's no regulations? Take it up with your leaders. Take it up with President Biden, Nancy Pelosi, and the Trump administration for introducing and Trump started this. I don't want to get political. I'm not going to get too deep into politics, but he started this. Biden said that he would put an end to it, and now he's yet to do so. But all of a sudden, he's coming out of the woodworks talking about controlled climate change and the dangers of it. Now getting around to the problem. Damn near 2 years being in office. Let me shut up.
Residents here is a feeling that there's mixed messaging. So certainly, the EPA said that the water is safe to drink here. Heard from health director yesterday who recommended that if you could, residents should consider buying bottled water. Are you saying that's off?
Yeah, that's off. If you have tap water, if you have water in the village, you can drink that water. That water has been tested. It's a well that they didn't think would be contaminated anyway. It's not been. We now know it's not been. So the difference between today and yesterday was when the health director said, I think I need bottled water. He knew that we didn't have the test results back.
Yes,
today we got the test results
exactly.
Back.
Thank you,
Obviously,
Daniel.
a town hall going on here tonight in
I
East
saw
Palestine.
that.
We got a statement this evening.
Yes. Guys, this was kind of swept underneath the rug. Thank you for bringing that up, Daniel, because I did want to talk about that too. One of News Nation's reporters, when this initially happened about 2 weeks ago, tried to go inside and ask questions. He was arrested. It looked like that they were hosting an event in a gymnasium. I saw the video. He was arrested, held in jail 5 hours, and he was released. And all of that was swept under the rug for some reason. Why do they have a problem with people talking about this? And why are people just now catching airwaves after 2 weeks of this going on? They don't want you guys to know that, oh, whoopsies, we fucked up big time. Oh, there's no reason why you should be concerned. Let's not panic, people. Return back to East Palestine, Ohio. After everything has been contaminated with carcinogens. This company that operated this train bailed out of last night's town hall meeting because they fear the safety of their employees and their workers. Why do they not want people to know what is happening? Why did they arrest that one reporter from News Nation? I saw other creators talking about that. I saw Queen Bee talking about that. I saw someone else talking about it. Did they know what was going on? Because it seemed to me that everyone was just dismissing it as being a rowdy reporter. Oh, he was out of line. He was crossing the line. He has every right to go in there. That's the freedom of the press. First Amendment. Freedom of speech. He has every right to go in there and ask whatever he needs to. I'm sure the residents of East Palestine, Ohio, want their voice to be heard. Yeah, let's get into this. 18,000 tons equals 36 million pounds of carcinogens released in that region. Again, I called my cousin that lives in Fairborn, a Dayton suburb in the middle of Ohio. She went to the doctor yesterday complaining of sharp pains in her head, in her skull. Now, she has neurological problems to begin with, but this came out of the blue. And whenever she went to the doctor, get this, they said, oh, it's probably because of allergies. It's because of allergies. bullshit. I don't believe it. I think that this is affecting a lot of people. So, yeah, this reporter just got arrested about a week ago. The video was snuffed out. After it happened, they tried to cover it up, but now it's resurfacing. You can't cover anything up. News Nation. Police released body cam footage of reporter's arrest. Ashley Banfield. This was from 6 days ago, going on a week ago.
5 were.
Again, News Nation is the source. Why?
But here are some of the.
Why are news reporters being arrested after covering this story? Why?
Ohio State Highway Patrol officers. They're going to walk around the news conference. You see all the cameras, and they're going to go to the corner, the back corner, where our Evan Lambert is in the middle of doing a live news conference. You can see him way there in the middle of your screen at the bottom, right? You can see some of those Ohio State Highway Patrol officers making their way over. You can also see Major General John C.
Okay, so let me share the screen with you. So this is a body cam footage of Ohio State Highway Patrol. And this is when the reporter was arrested about a week ago after covering this story out of East Palestine regarding the train derailment, which has turned into a a chemical disaster.
See Harrison the camo, he had sort of said stop, right? Now you're going to see that one officer doing the cutting motion, telling Evan as he's live, cut it off. Evan at this point, and I'll show you this later live, what it looked like live. He's telling his audience, all right, I've just been told I have to wrap this up. You can see the Major General there coming around.
I know we are. Now, or you can go to jail. Sir, you want to go to jail for criminal trespassing? You want to go to jail for criminal trespassing? You understand?
See, why did they have such an issue with him covering this story? Why did they have such an issue with him talking about this? They said that he was being loud. He was being too loud. That's the reason why the police confronted him. He was being too loud indoors. You want to go to jail? Why are you sending the press off to jail? They're just there asking the questions.
I know we are.
They're just doing their job. Why does this man have an issue with him? So if there's more to this story, people, please let me know, because I heard about this initially when it happened. I saw other creators talking about it, but I didn't realize that it was connected to this story until looking into the East Palestine chemical disaster. So this is where you're going to see him being handcuffed and put to the ground. See if I can find the right one. All of this shit was being recorded. They got so many angles of it. So again, this is coming from East Palestine, Ohio. The reporter that tried to cover this story, body cam footage obtained by News Nation shows moments leading up to an arrest of a News Nation reporter. Has this reporter been fired? Has there been any updates pertaining to this? Was he fired? Was he let go after this happened? I'm curious. Surely he wasn't. Surely he wasn't. Including a part of an argument between a member of the Ohio National Guard and correspondent Evan Limberg. So here's from the reporter that got arrested, and I guess that there has been an update. So again, this is coming from News Nation if you want to hear it for yourself. Lamberg. No journalist expects to be arrested when you're doing your job. Ashley Banfield is the source, News Nation. We are talking about the chemical disaster coming out of East Palestine, Ohio, and why people do not want reporters and internet sleuths like me talking about it.
Welcome back. This was a hell of a day. Tell me what you're thinking.
So again, he was released 5 hours. He was in jail 5 hours, and he was released.
Yeah, thanks, Ashley. Everyone's just been checking on me. I'm doing fine right now, and it's just been an extremely long day. I have to be kind of careful about what I say, but as you can see, I'm out. Most things are on video of the situation, so it's pretty clear to see what happened. But I'll just say this: I'm just trying to do my job as I am continuing to do right now, and that's what it's all about: protecting the First Amendment and democracy and trying to help people get information. We were talking about this major accident that impacted hundreds, thousands of people in this town, and that's just what we were trying to do at the time and what I continue to try to do.
Are you doing okay? I know that is quite an experience, and it's never one anybody wants to go through. Are you just? I know you must be shaken up.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's something that people don't necessarily expect to happen, especially.
No journalist, reporter expects to be arrested for doing their job. And you said that their excuse was that he was interrupting the governor, but Dwayne said he couldn't see. Yeah, Governor Dwayne. Let me just say this: Governor Dwayne. He came out and he said that this should not happen. No one should have been arrested. This reporter should not have been arrested. That's what Governor Dwayne has said. So I'm glad that this person is all right and that they're still employed by News Nation. You have to give this man props. He went in. He was doing his job. He stood his ground. Even though he went off to jail, he stood in the right of free speech, freedom of the goddamn press.
With cameras rolling, but I guess we're in a world where obviously as journalists, that's always the case. But I think just for regular people too, everybody has a camera, and I think that's great. And we should record these things when they happen. But again, obviously a long day, but I'm doing okay. Did a lot of sitting around.
Listen, I'm a legal reporter, and I
So here is Ohio Governor Mike DeWine calls against arrest for News Nation reporter to be dropped. This is just from 1 day ago. He has spoke out against this arrest.
On the next step.
There were reports that you were not necessarily looking at any sort of action regarding the adjutant general and the reporter who was arrested. Is there going to be anything after this?
Well, as you know, this matter is turned over by the local county prosecutor to the attorney general. I remain, I have the same opinion I had the first day, and that is that I would hope that charges would be dropped. I I think that would be the best thing. Whatever happened after the general walked away, the reality is that the reporter should not have been stopped, period. So it shouldn't even started that way. And I understand, people may have different feelings about what happened afterwards, but the initial stop, the initial confrontation, or the initial contact never should have occurred. So taking that into consideration, seems to me that everyone would be better off if we just, if the Attorney General perceives fit not to proceed with any kind of prosecution.
Did you talk to the Attorney General about the initial confrontation?
Yes. Yes. Look, I think the general, regrets that. I explained to him, how press conferences work, and that frankly that sometimes during a live press conference, someone will be reporting directly. Someone could be right now standing back there and reporting if they wanted to. And that's
Yes, exactly. That's their job as reporters and journalists, is to cover the story. This is freedom of press. If you don't know what we're listening to, we are listening to Ohio Governor Mike DeWine discussing the arrest of the News Nation reporter last week. He was covering the derailment in East Palestine, Ohio. Now, what I've said before, why do they have an issue with this getting out to the public? Why do they have an issue with journalists, reporters talking about this? YouTube doesn't even like people talking about this. That's why I'm not in the algorithm right now. This video is probably not getting in the algorithm. There's like 2 or 3 people watching. This happened about 2 weeks ago out of East Palestine, Ohio. There is a chemical disaster that is occurring in front of our eyes. 5,000 residents of that town have been affected. And this was all caused, let's not forget, people, the entity responsible is Norfolk Southern.
They have the right to deliver the news however they want to deliver the news. So yes, we've had a conversation, and he regrets the whole situation. So
I'm con.
Okay. Okay. Had to step away. I have to step away pretty soon because I have to go get some tea, refill my cup. Good morning to the viewing audience, the ones of you that are listening to the podcast. Welcome back. We are discussing the Ohio chemical disaster that is coming out of East Palestine. We are also going to be getting into the controversial Safety Act of Illinois, so stay tuned for that. But let's take a look at Norfolk Southern and the real estate that they sell. Just since we're discussing Norfolk Southern, the same people behind the train that rolled through East Palestine, Ohio, and derailed. Norfolk Southern does sell land. Oops. I have to make sure everything is in place because I'm so ADD and OCD. If anything is out of place, it bothers me. Oh my God. Okay. Okay. Let's see if my camera's working. So, once again, people, let's look further into Norfolk Southern. Let's talk more Norfolk Southern and their stocks and the real estate that they possess and sell. Because, like I said before, I don't think that this was a coincidence. I don't think that an entire movie that was based off of what we just saw transpire out of Ohio was a coincidence. Or I don't think it is a conspiracy theory either. That's what we like to do over here is speculate and conspiracize. But no, I think this thing was planned. Now, again, anything that I discuss as a disclaimer is simply my viewpoints and my opinions. It does fall under the copyright disclaimer, which you see scrolling below. Freedom of speech, right? So as we mentioned before, Norfolk Southern does have real estate available. It has land in 22 states and the District of Columbia, along with Canada. Land is available for purchase and lease, whether you need a few hundred square feet or a few hundred acres. Learn more about the Norfolk Southern land for your next project. Norfolk Southern sells and leases property for a variety of uses, including commercial and industrial development and cellular and microwave tower and fibers. Many of the services that are shown, if you have a particular need, please let us know. So cellular and microwave towers and fibers. They, according to what they're saying, they provide a variety of uses for this land, including commercial and industrial development. About the real estate. Norfolk Southern owns and manages real estate across the territory in which we operate. If you are interested in purchasing or leasing land from Norfolk Southern, selling land to the railroad, or managing and developing land or natural resources on railroad property, Norfolk Southern Real Estate can help. Our services: property sales, property leases, wireline/pipeline and fabric optics, private crossings, signboards, natural resource management. And of course, if you're interested in buying real estate from Norfolk Southern, there is their information right there on the screen. Also, if you want to voice your opinions about what is happening in Ohio, you can also contact Norfolk Southern. So Norfolk Southern Ohio mega site, Haverhill, Ohio. Since 1894, Norfolk Southern's industrial development team has helped companies large and small find the right site to successfully grow their businesses and serve customers. This 875-acre site in southern Ohio is owned by NS and is primed to be developed into the world-class manufacturing facility. This site has essential elements in place to get you started quickly. So ready for development. The large footprint, one owner. This 875-acre site is known by Norfolk Southern. Water access. This site includes 5,700 of the frontage of the Ohio frontage, whatever, of the Ohio River. Utilities. Exceptional electric and natural gas resources are available. So it sounds like that they own a lot of property in Ohio and along the Ohio River. What is this? Haverhill, Ohio is where their mega site is. In the business of a better planet. Oh, how interesting. Let's what do we have here, guys? Let me turn off this screen share for just 1 second. I want to turn on what I'm reading on the screen. So again, this is Norfolk Southern's, if you can read this. See, make sure, no, that's not the right tab. Let's see. Share. There we go. Okay. So this is coming from, again, this is coming from Haverhill, Ohio, in the business of a better planet. This is their mega site. So again, they own a lot of industries and a lot of land in Ohio, probably along the entire Rust Belt. The more that I'm digging into this company, the more that I'm learning. So it reads, in the business of a better planet, rail is the greenest and most efficient way to ship freight over land. Each year, Norfolk Southern helps our customers avoid over 15 million metric tons of carbon emissions compared to shipping by highway and delivering the low carbon economy. As greater emphasis is being placed on the Scope 3 emissions, companies are publicly committing greenhouse gas emissions reduction targets. Our customers have expressed the need for a higher degree of transparency with respect to measuring supply chain emissions and the tools for incorporating carbon and ESG into their shipping decisions. The Norfolk Southern Carbon Calculator is our response to that need. applying a scientific-based approach to eliminating avoided emissions for shipping freight by rail versus truck. Truck mileage and rail mileage are approximated independently using the best practices garnered from each industry as acceptable. Apply. Truck emissions presented on the calculator are determined using the emission standard from the trucking industry. Our rail emissions are backed by careful data analysts applied to over 7 million shipments representing 18 car rail types and 30 commodities plus an intermodal. This generates avoided emissions estimates that are more accurate within reason. Okay, so they're claiming to be eco-friendly. That's what I got from that. Okay. But guys, the reason why I'm sharing this, the main thing that I want you to take from this is that Norfolk Southern owns a lot of real estate and property in Ohio along the Ohio River. Let's dig a little bit deeper. So who is Norfolk Southern owned by? Norfolk Southern is owned by Vanguard Group, Inc., who owns Norfolk Southern. It is owned by 63.78% of the institutional shareholders, 1.52% Norfolk Southern insiders, and 34.7% retail investors. Vanguard Group, Inc. is the largest individual Norfolk Southern shareholder, owning 18.53 million shares, representing 8.14% of the company. The Vanguard Group, Inc. is an American registered investment advisor based in Malvern, Pennsylvania, with about $7 trillion in global assets under management as of January 13th, 2021. waiver, Norfolk Southern is requiring residents to sign before they test their air and water. What? Oh, wow. Let's look at this. Waiver, Norfolk Southern is requiring residents to sign before they test their air and water. And as you can see, this is a picture that somebody submitted here on Reddit, and it was the property access agreement and release dated February 11th, 2023, and that's been blocked out, their personal information. Not trying to dox them. This is a standard waiver that most companies require you entering into your property. It only means that you cannot hold the company liable for any damage that they do. That's what I figured. So that's pretty standard for them to release a waiver just in case they cause damage to your property or to anything else. You know, they're not going to be held reliable or accountable. They're not responsible. I'm not a lawyer, but it looks like this release only covers what happens during the testing, not what already happened. Exactly. So I guess this is just standard. This is nothing exciting. I'm seeing what I can find on this company. Alan Shaw, CEO of Norfolk Southern Railway, the company responsible for the Ohio train derailment. This post has been removed by moderators for Reddit pics. Corporations and people, it's time to start locking them up. Corporations are people. Yes, they are. That's true. Corporations are made of people. So it's not necessarily the corporation. It's the people at the corporation, because every entity has a face behind it. I'm the face behind Seraphic Pathways. I get that. How depressing that the two historical events from the 1890 and then 2022, when the judge sides with the NRA, National Railway Association. That's what the NRA stands for, guys. National Railroad Association. Judges are just like hookers. They can be bought for a night or two. Or maybe judges are like women. Some of them are, I'm not going to read that comment. So judges are like anybody. Bingo. These people on Reddit are arguing. Only lawyers see them that way. I don't like the plea of having any rights. Then you get into the hacking system. I don't know what these people are talking about. This is just getting off topic. But Alan Shaw, the CEO of Norfolk Railway, the company responsible for the Ohio train derailments. So this is the CEO of Norfolk Railway, Alan Shaw. Let me Norfolk Southern. So let's take a look at what the people are saying, the employees of Norfolk Southern. Let's see if we can find anything interesting. If you have no family, no. So we heard earlier in an article that I brought to you that the workers for Norfolk Southern are overworked. There's been cutbacks when it pertains to the car maintenance. If you ever want to see your family for the first 8 years in this job, you were on call 24/7 for 6 days a week with only 10 hours of rest between. Impossible to have much of a work life, tough on people with kids and family. The way management and employees clash is absolutely insane. Until recently, they had the mindset that everyone could be replaced, and for that reason treated employees good or bad employees like we were trash. That was submitted February 7th, 2023. So just 9 days ago. Impossible to have much of a work life here, tough on people with kids. The way that management and employees clash is absolutely insane. Until recently, they had the mindset that everyone could be replaced. And for that reason, they treated employees good or bad like they were trash. This person says that it's a good benefits and work-life balance. Don't do it. It's not worth it. Oh yeah, hello bro. I'm just now reading your comment. Sorry I was asleep while watching your stream on that day. Yeah, you're good. A lot of people, they're getting woke up, so... See, I'm on the East Coast, so it's already afternoon. It's 12:31 here, so... But we are talking about the East Palestine, that trail derailment in Ohio. And I'm looking deeper into Norfolk Southern. Right now on the screen, you're looking at employees, current and former employees of this site. So it looks like that they're not going to show us the reviews. But as you can see, it matches up to what they said in the article. There's been cuts for maintenance on cars. They're overworked if something goes haywire while on the train. You have to get out. You have to go through every one of those cars. And that train that derailed in East Palestine, Ohio, had 150 cars attached to it. 150 cars and 18,000 tons. Two days before it derailed, it broke down somewhere in Illinois. And the employees have not been named. They have not came out and released their names. Apparently they still work there. And they even said in retaliation, the train derailment in Ohio could have been migrated, it was going to happen regardless. It was just a matter of where it was going to happen. But they're saying that if it was taken care of, it could have been prevented entirely. And they fear the retaliation of Norfolk Southern for releasing this information. This company doesn't like people talking about this. That's why they're trying to keep as many news entities, the press, from releasing this information. All right. So let's move on to the other piece of information. This is going to be a two-part live. The first part, we were talking about the East Palestine chemical disaster. And we're going to be switching the gears up to Illinois' Controversial Safety Act. We discussed a little bit about this yesterday. I've been covering the Safety Act for months now. 4 months ago, I brought this to y'all. If you don't know what the Safety Act is, it is a new law in effect in Illinois. It goes much deeper than this, but on a basis, it eliminates cash bail for people that committed crimes such as second-degree murder, armed robbery, vehicular homicide, intimidation, threatening a public official, and other nonviolent crimes. You can be released on cash bail. You can be released without cash bail. I'm sorry. You can be released without cash bail. You cannot be held in jail if you commit these crimes. You have to go back to court, but you're not going to be held in jail just because you can't afford to bail yourself out. Now, this law, I know what people are already thinking. Okay, we are back. My laptop died. I do apologize about that. We went down for a second, but we are back to stir the pot. Might as well stir the pot. Stir the pot, people.
This is not a test. This is your emergency broadcast system announcing the commencement of the annual purge sanctioned by the U.S. government. Weapons of Class 4 and lower have been authorized for use during the purge. All other weapons are restricted. Government officials of ranking 10 have been granted immunity from the purge and shall not be harmed. Commencing at the siren, any and all crime, including murder, will be legal for 12 continuous hours. Police, fire, and emergency medical services will be unavailable until tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. when the purge concludes. Blessed be our new founding fathers and America, a nation reborn. May God be with you all. Morning at 7 a.m. when the purge concludes. Blessed be our new founding fathers and America, a nation reborn. May God be with you all.
ABC7 Chicago is the source. If you want to go view it for yourself, ABC7 Chicago is the source of Illinois' Controversial Safety Act, which has sparked a wide range of controversy among state leaders and lawmakers.
Depending on where they live. So both sides are turning to the state's high court. This is a big win for the rule of law, and this should be embarrassing to the Illinois General Assembly. County State's Attorney Patrick Canalen heralding the ruling blocking a portion of the Illinois Safety Act that ends the practice of cash bail on January 1st, allowing judges to detain certain defendants they deem dangerous. This is a law that undermines public safety. In his 33-page opinion, Kankakee County Judge Thomas Covington citing the need for a separation of powers, saying the appropriateness of bail rests with the authority of the court and may not be determined by legislative fiat. Illinois Attorney General disagrees.
In fact, with the recent amendments to the Safety Act, I think judges' discretion with regards to pretrial detention is expanded.
The judge's ruling applies only to the 60-plus Illinois counties where the law was challenged, including McHenry, DeKalb, Kendall, Grundy, Will, and Kankakee. Cook, DuPage, Kane, and Lake are not impacted by the ruling.
And it could now be that whether or not you are held on a bail or a money bond prior to trial could be determined by your zip code.
The Attorney General appealing to the state's high court, and state's attorneys are headed there too.
We're going to ask the Illinois Supreme Court.
So what is the Illinois Safety Act? The Safety, Accountability for Equity and Safety Act was introduced in 2021 by lawmakers in Illinois. It was not put into effect until January 1st, 2023. And one of many things behind it, it would release nonviolent inmates charged with nonviolent crimes, nonviolent offenders that were incarcerated prior to January 1st, 2023. Moving forth past January 1st, 2023, if you are charged and if you live in Illinois with second-degree murder, vehicular homicide, kidnapping, arson, threatening a public official, along with numerous other crimes, you can be released without cash bail. Now, the debate whether cash bail is, hinders criminals from offending multiple times, repeatedly offending, is up for debate. I don't think that a person should be held in jail because they have an ounce of weed or they were selling weed. I don't think that you should sit 4 months in incarceration because you didn't pay a ticket. Yes, I see the good intentions behind the Safety Act, but some are arguing whether this creates a wormhole loop for criminals to offend again. Cash Bail Changes 2023 Safety Act. This is coming from Illinois Legal and Aid Online. Note, it states, on January 28th, 2022, a judge, turn my good microphone, a judge in I can't say that county declared elimination of cash bail unconstitutional. The judge's decision was appealed to the Illinois Supreme Court. The Illinois Supreme Court has paused the application of the law that ends cash bail until the appeal is decided. While the pause is in effect, the information below about the end of cash bail and pre-trial release will not be applied to any case. Starting in January 2023, the state of Illinois will no longer use a cash bail system. Instead, it will be used a pre-trial release system allowed by the Safety Act. This is a developing area of law. There are legal challenges to the law, and much is unknown about how the pretrial release process will work. If you have a question about the new system and how it applies to you, contact your local defender or talk to your lawyer. What is pretrial release? Pretrial release is an alternative to the traditional cash bail system. Under the pretrial release system, you may be released while you wait for your trial without needing to arrange for cash bail. If you are arrested, you will have the opportunity to appear before a judge. The judge will then decide if you are eligible to go on a pretrial release until your case is resolved. So there's been reforms made to the Safety Act in Illinois, basically encouraging judges to use their discretion when handling any cases, saying, hey, if a person is a flight risk, if a person is known to be a violent offender, they may not qualify for a pre-trial release. Will criminal defendants in jail be immediately released on January 1st, 2023? No. Governor Pritzker's office said that the bill does not require the immediate release for people accused of specific felonies and misdemeanors. People who are in jail can ask to have a new pretrial system release applied to their situation. To do this, the defendant must ask for a hearing. The hearings will be granted based on a tiered system. Or a tiered system, I'm sorry. The lowest level of offense, example, petty shoplifting, hearings must be done within 7 days of the request. Those detained but considered flight risk would get hearings 60 days afterwards. Those considered to be a potential threat to safety get hearings 90 days. Courts will have the option to release individuals if they find the defendants not to be opposed or not to pose an active threat to the community or other individual. What does the Safety Act mean for new criminal defendants? If you are stopped by a police officer for a Class B misdemeanor in Illinois, a Class C misdemeanor, or petty and business offense, you will likely get a citation instead of being arrested, unless the police officer determines you, quote, pose a threat to the community, pose a threat to another person, have a medical or mental health issue that poses a risk for their own safety. This means that while you wait for your court date, you will not be in police custody or have the option to receive cash bail. However, the pretrial hearing, a judge can still order that you be detained if they determine that you pose a specific real or present threat to a person or that you are likely to flee, a flight risk. This determination will vary based on the judge and the county. What crimes led to a citation? What crimes lead to a citation? Class B misdemeanors, Class C misdemeanors, and petty and business offenses. Examples of types of crimes that are likely to lead to a citation instead of an arrest include telephone harassment, not limited to aggravated speeding, 31 miles over the posted speed limit, obstruction of service, a process, littering, disorderly conduct, assault, failing to wear a seatbelt. What crimes lead to an arrest? First and second degree murder, predatory criminal assault of a child, aggravated criminal assault and criminal sexual assault, robbery and burglary, where this is used of force against another person, residential burglary, home invasions, vehicular invasions, office offenses that require jail or prison time if charged without probation, hate crimes, animal torture, DUI causing bodily harm. So these are the crimes that can lead to an arrest, but it is up to the judge in question, and it's going to vary county by county, whether you qualify for a pre-trial release. These are all of the offenses that you can be released without cash bail. is it true that someone who is trespassing will not be arrested? This depends. The officer responding to a trespassing complaint can arrest the suspect if they find that the suspect poses a threat to the community or any person. The suspect has an obvious mental or medical issue that poses a risk. What we read before, the criminal activity continues even after the police issue a citation. Otherwise, police officers are now required to only issue a citation and not arrest or detain the suspect. However, if a person is cited for trespassing and continues to trespass, they will be arrested. Before your pretrial release hearing, after being cited or arrested, you will go before a judge who will decide if you are eligible for a pretrial release. A judge can deny pretrial release for forcible felonies. If you get a citation, if a police officer gives you a citation, you need to pay attention to your scheduled court date. This court date will likely be within 21 days of getting the citation. It is very important that you show up to your schedule at your pretrial release hearing. At your hearing, the judge will determine whether you pose a specific threat. This will take into consideration the nature of the offense, your age, physical condition and history, the identity of the persons that were threatened, what you said, argue, and physical condition of the victim or complaining witnesses, whether you had access to a weapon or were on probation, and or any other factors the court chooses to include. The judge will also decide whether you grant a pretrial release. In some cases, part of your pretrial release conditions may include electronic monitoring, GPS monitoring, or home confinement. So this information that I'm bringing to you right now that you're about to hear is coming from ABC 7 Chicago. Lawmakers react after judge rules portion of Safety Act unconstitutional. So lawmakers in Illinois are calling for a reform, also calling the Safety Act unconstitutional. They fear for the public's safety. Let's listen. Again, ABC 7 Chicago is the source if you want to view this information for yourself. Have to sit through an advertisement. Just wait for 1 second, please. Thank you for tuning in. Let's hear more about the Safety Act.
The Illinois Supreme Court, after a Kankakee County judge ruled that the portion of the Safety Act that would have ended cash bail in the state is unconstitutional. State's attorneys in 65 counties challenged the law, which was supposed to take effect at the start of the new year. As a result of the judge's ruling, pretrial release and bail reforms spelled out in the law will not take effect in those 65 counties come the start of 2023. The portion of the law would have allowed judges to decide if a defendant does not pose a public safety risk. Ruling pretrial release and bail challenged the law.
So it looks like that this was published 1 month ago. The Safety Act Illinois legislation passed to reform the state's criminal justice system has an uncertain future after whatever this county judge ruling. So they put it on hold. Lawmakers again are calling this unconstitutional. Let's hear why.
Which was supposed to take effect at the start of the new year. As a result of the judge's ruling, pretrial release and bail reforms spelled out in the law will not take effect in those 65 counties come the start of 2023. The portion of the law would have allowed judges to decide if a defendant does not pose a public safety risk.
So in 65 counties, it's not in effect in Illinois. I wonder if it's what county is Kiskanski or Kankakee? I can't say the county's name. Kankakee County.
Could be released without posting a cash bail. ABC 7 legal analyst Gil Sofer explains why the judge believes this portion of the Safety Act is unconstitutional.
Listen carefully.
Specifically, what this judge is saying is that judges, the judiciary, has the inherent power to make decisions about pretrial release and bail. And in this case, the legislature inappropriately took that away from the judiciary. So he found it was a violation of separation of powers.
In a statement, Governor J.B. Pritzker wrote, in part, today's ruling is a setback for the principles we fought to protect through the passage of the Safety Act. We cannot and should not defend a system that fails to keep people safe by allowing those who are a threat to their community the ability to simply buy their way out of jail. And following the decision, Kankakee County State's Attorney Jim Rowe wrote, the Safety Act amended the state constitution and eroded the constitutional protections of the Victim Rights Act, all while disenfranchising the people of their constitutional right to vote on such reforms. Other parts of the Safety Act that includes police accountability and training will still take effect on January 1st. Tanya and Diane.
Hey, if you like that video, be sure to subscribe to our
Okay,
ABC7
once again,
Chicago.
ABC 7 Chicago is the source, people. If you want to go view that interview for yourself of the lawmakers calling the Safety Act unconstitutional. What they're fearing is that it gives criminals an opportunity. Now it makes it easier for them to go out and offend again. That's what they're basically getting at. People that are being held on cash bail. This has already been happening, but I mean, there's poor criminals, there's rich criminals, there's criminals that have money, there's criminals that are poor. It turns out that the ones that have money, what's stopping the only thing that's stopping them from offending again is getting out of jail. A get out of jail free card, which, well, criminals can bail themselves out. 65 counties in Illinois have opposed the passing of the Safety Act. Excuse me, of the Safety Act. In Chicago, police can no longer chase you down. Okay, so once again, ABC 7 is the source if you would like to go view this information yourself. What does this...
That ruling applies only to those counties.
What does the Safety Act in Illinois Safety, Accountability for Equity Act ruling mean for Illinois bail reform? 65 counties have already opposed it.
Where the law was challenged, there are concerns tonight about defendants being treated differently depending on where they live, and so both sides are turning to the state's high court.
This is a big win for the rule of law, and this should be embarrassing to the Illinois General Assembly.
County State's Attorney Patrick Kennelly heralding the ruling blocking a portion of the Illinois Safety Act that ends the practice of cash bail on January 1st, while allowing judges to detain certain defendants they deem dangerous.
This is a law that undermines public safety.
In his 33-page opinion, Kankakee County Judge Thomas Cunnington citing the need for a separation of powers, saying the appropriateness of bail rests with the authority of the court and may not be determined by legislative fiat. Illinois' Attorney General disagrees.
In fact, with the recent amendments to the Safety Act, I think judge's discretion with regards to pretrial detention is expanded.
The judge's ruling applies only to the 60-plus Illinois counties where the law was challenged, including McHenry, DeKalb, Kendall, Grundy, Will, and Kankakee. Cook, DuPage, Kane, and Lake are not impacted by the ruling.
And it could now be that whether or not you are held on a bail or a money bond prior to trial could be determined by your zip code.
The Attorney General appealing to the state's high court, and state's attorneys are headed there too.
We're going to ask the Illinois Supreme Court to declare the entire act unconstitutional and make it applicable to the entire state.
That judge in Kankakee County reject.
ABC7 is the source, people. We are talking about Illinois Safety Act. What are your thoughts and opinions on Illinois Safety Act, how they are releasing offenders of certain crimes, such as second-degree murder and aggravated assault, out without cash bail? If you have something to say and if you have something to bring to today's commentary, I do invite you to come up here on this panel. Share your thoughts and opinions if you want to. You can also sound off in the chat. Let's make this live count, people. Okay, hit the link if you have something to say about the topics that are being discussed. Once again, thank you for tuning in if you have tuned in today on Bandit's podcast. We've been discussing the East Palestine, Ohio bomb train, the chemical disaster that is occurring in Ohio. We've also discussed Illinois' controversial Safety Act. The reason why it's so controversial is because some people are arguing, while it does do criminals a justice by not allowing people to be held in jail because they can't afford to get out, it gives violent offenders an opportunity to offend again. There's also been other reforms made in Chicago along with the rest of the state of Illinois. 65 counties have opposed the ruling, calling it unconstitutional. As I mentioned before, in Chicago, there's been several changes already in Chicago, cutting back on the crime. You cannot police restrictions. Let's see if I can, which will end cash bail safety app. Former prosecutor. Just coming to Illinois Safety Act. Cash bail is still allowed in Illinois Safety Act. So, unpacking the Safety Act, former Cook County prosecutor explains changes to come. So this is coming from a prosecutor in Cook County, Illinois. Fox 32 Chicago is the source, people, if you want to go view it for yourself. I'm just repeating this information.
Fairness.
Okay, let's see what this prosecutor has to say about the Safety Act.
Or remains in jail until they're tried in court. So how is this going to change?
So this so-called Safety Act is one of the most radical rewrites of the criminal justice code in Illinois that we've seen in recent history, in decades, as a matter of fact. And as currently written, it's a blueprint for disaster for public safety in Illinois. There are aspects of the bill that have some merit, but overall, this will change the system because the bail will be eliminated. Cash bail will be eliminated. So in essence, the defendant will either be held in custody until they go to trial or they'll be released. That's not really the problem. It's not the elimination of the cash bail. It's how severe.
What you're going to hear him say is what I've been saying. It gives them an opportunity to offend again. People, not everybody, but one bad apple ruins the bunch. And there's a lot of bad apples out there. There's a lot of opportunists and there's a lot of copycats. So whenever you see one person All it takes is just one person testing and bending the rules, seeing how far away they can get. How far can they get? I wonder if I can actually get away with this. And then it all starts from that one person. People will follow. Let's listen. Let's carry on. Again, this is former Cook County prosecutor speaking on the Safety Act 3 months ago. The person that you're hearing speaking is Dan Kirk. He is the former Cook County prosecutor on the Safety Act.
How it severely limits a judge's discretion in who a judge can hold, even when that person is clearly a danger to the community.
Now, mind you, judges are not allowed to take into consideration a criminal's past record, which means, let's say, if they pose a flight risk, judges are not aware of that information. Let's repeat that again, if I explained it well. A judge that is determining whether someone can be released without cash bail does not have the information available to determine if the person was previously a flight risk.
And that's the scary proposition about this, and that's the part of it that's screaming out for some amendment.
Yeah, and it's set off a political fire keg. For our viewers, give them an idea, if you will, of some of the types of crimes where after January 1st, a person can no longer be...
Yes, listen very carefully. The types of crimes that you can be released without cash bail. Without cash bail. Now, again, it's up to the judge whether they allow that privilege to you, but many of these judges don't have resources to the history of criminals.
Be detained.
So that list of crimes is pretty shocking. So I want to prepare your viewers. It includes aggravated robbery, kidnapping, arson, hate crimes, burglary. Somebody breaks into your house and steals your stuff. They can't really be detained except in very limited circumstances. Threatening a public official, intimidating witnesses, and second-degree murder. The list surprises people. People just shake their heads when they learn how long this list is.
Let's repeat that again.
Supporters of the law do say that murderers, rapists,
sex crimes, threatening a public official, arson, burglary, second-degree murder, kidnapping, stalking, all of these you can be released without cash bail. Under the Safety Act, if you're not within those 75 counties of Illinois.
sex offenders and people accused of gun
Or I'm sorry, those six counties in Illinois.
crimes, they're still going to be held without bail. So, they're asking what's wrong with reforming what some say is wealth-based incarceration for the rest of these lower offenses.
Well, it's important to note that on those offenses that you mentioned, murder, gun charges, maybe they'll be detained. If the state's attorney chooses to make the argument that they're a danger to the community, but it's not. If the state's attorney chooses to make the argument that they're a danger to the community, but the state's attorney chooses to make the argument that they're a danger to the community, but they'll be detained. They'll be detained. Maybe they'll be detained. It's important to note that on those offenses that you mentioned, murder, gun charges, maybe they'll be detained. It's important to note that on those offenses that you mentioned, murder, gun charges, maybe they'll be detained. If the state's attorney chooses to make the argument that they're a danger to the community, but it's not a sure thing. Look, holding murderers and rapists in custody pending trial is a no-brainer, right? But it's the other offenses where people will no longer be held. And I just read the list to you of just some of them. It's pretty shocking, and it clearly creates a new danger to our community, which is already being.
What makes you think that a criminal cannot convince a judge that they do not pose a risk to public safety? They can be very charming, some criminals, as we've seen before. You know, and judges, let's be honest. Not every judge is the same. Not every judge has the same type of discernment. Prime example, the Harmony Montgomery case. I'm not trying to bring that case into it, but I'm going to mention that case for a reason. The judge in Manchester, New Hampshire, granted custody of a 5-year-old child to a witness and suspect in a murder investigation. Her biological father, Adam Montgomery, mind you, Harmony was living in Massachusetts. And without any proper evaluation of Adam Montgomery, the judge, without even doing the steps necessary to do an out-of-state commission, I believe that's what it's called, when a child in DCYS system gets transferred out of state to a home. They did not do the proper steps. And as a result, Harmony got put into custody. All because a judge failed miserably and was in a rush to get out because he was about to retire. This just goes to show that judges, sometimes they're not the smartest people. They can be very dumb and they lack discernment. Bringing it back to the Illinois Safety Act, it's left up to the judge to determine if the defendant could pose a risk to the public themselves or if they are a flight risk. However, there's no way of the judge knowing if there's a flight risk because there's other laws that prevent that from happening. Looking up criminal history from the offender.
Being beaten up on a daily basis. People are just absolutely, fatigued and sick and tired of seeing the daily headlines of the brazenness of criminality, especially in Cook County. And that's just been a result of policy in Cook County. This law spreads this to the rest of the state of Illinois.
There's so many elements to this. I wish we had more time, but talk about the impact the law is going to have on criminal cases when it pertains to victims or those who might have to testify against a defendant.
That's one of the most alarming parts about it. It's going to be very difficult to hold people in custody in many of these cases. So it leaves criminals free to go out and intimidate witnesses or the victims. We already have a massive problem with trying to get people to come forward. That's a big reason why clearance rates in Chicago are so low. This is going to make it exponentially worse. And that's not a good thing for the safety of our communities.
All right. Well, Dan, Kirk, definitely.
Okay. Again, Fox 32 Chicago is the source. That was former Illinois Cook County prosecutor speaking on the Safety Act. And that was back 4 months ago. So 6 counties in Illinois have put the Safety Act on hold. Hold on for 1 second. I need to clear my throat. So, yeah, you see the problem. You see why people are saying that it reminds them of the purge law, the propaganda that people, that's what they want to call it, the propaganda. But hey, it's true. And this is not only in Illinois. There's been other laws. Yesterday, I was reading that Texas is considering the same thing. So is Washington, D.C. And there's a lot of other places already put in place where you can be released without cash bail. But Illinois took it the next step to say, hey, the judge is the one that has to determine whether you're going to offend or not. Even if you committed burglary, stalking, a sexual crime, second-degree murder, I mean, second-degree murder, rapists, people that committed those type of crimes. Okay, yeah, it's a no-brainer. They should be held on bail. They should not qualify for no cash bail. But what about the people that are stalkers? What about the people that are known to threaten public officials? Apparently, you can go out and make a threat, get arrested, or get a citation, right? Not even arrested. The Illinois Safety Act, if you're a trespasser on a property in some counties, the police, all they can tell you is to leave and to give you a citation. Now, if you're not being violent, again, it's up to the police officer, but the police have restrictions themselves. So you have to hop through a bunch of hoops and hurdles. You see what they're doing, people? This is why people are comparing it to be the purge, because it's eventually going to get to the point where police can only do so much. There's a lot of police departments in this country that are underfunded, and quite frankly, police don't care enough. They don't get paid enough. Can you blame them? And especially whenever they have limitations in all of these laws that impede how they are doing their job. Now, let me get one thing clear. I do not promote police brutality. I'm completely against that. I understand that police have a job to do. They're here to protect the public. But when you're restricting and making it difficult for them to do their jobs, well, what else are they supposed to do? They're backed into a corner. Oh, hey, sir, you just made a bomb threat at the AT&T store? Is that correct? Okay, I'm going to give you this citation. Here's a slap on the wrist. Good day. And expect them to what? Just leave? I'm sure that good things are going to come out of this law. I do hope that we see less people being in jail for petty crimes, things that they don't have any business being in jail, incarceration for. But we're just going to have to see how this plays out in 2023. It's already in effect for the majority of Illinois. 6 counties put it on hold because they found it unconstitutional. So will the Illinois Safety Act cut down or increase crime rates in Illinois? Will it cut down or increase crime rates in Illinois? If you want to bring something to this commentary, and if you want to come up here, hello, Elaine. You can always hit the link. If you're on Facebook, Spiritual Guidance and Life Coaching, you can also hit the link too. It should take you directly to the StreamYard portal. Yes, hello, Elaine. So we've been talking about the East Palestine bomb train, the situation that we were covering yesterday, and out of East Palestine, Ohio, the chemical disaster. And we've also been talking about Illinois' controversial Safety Act that has been put on hold by 6 counties in the state of Illinois due to it being, quote, unconstitutional, and the problems and the risk that come with it, according to some lawmakers in Illinois. I know that Illinois has its problems to begin with. They've been known to having corrupt governors, state leaders, representatives. They're notorious for that. But it sounds like some people in office have at least half a hemisphere of a brain saying, hey, this is not a good idea, y'all. Okay, so this was from 1 year ago. Listen carefully. Okay, please listen carefully. Suburbs outside of Chicago. WGN News is the source. Suburbs are also struggling with a surge and rise in violent crime in Chicago. While Chicago gets most of the attention when it comes to crime concerns, nearby suburbs are also seeing a significant surge in carjackings, shootings, and unalivings. Again, WGN9 investigates is the source. Let's see what people were saying 1 year ago. 1 year ago in Chicago, before the Safety Act went into effect.
It's very scary. I mean, I've got 6 grandchildren that live within walking distance here.
We have a lot of great neighbors here, and a lot of very concerned people, engaged people, and I know we're not going to give up in terms of applying the pressure, and until we get some type of creative, productive response.
I wish I could say I had a sense of outrage, but I almost didn't. Just almost felt numb. Just get used to it now. I don't like that being my response. I don't like it being that this is going to happen again, and it's going to happen again, and just throwing up my hands and saying, what can we do?
In 2019, 3 people were struck by gunfire in Oak Park. Last year, the number jumped to 11, and a couple was stabbed to death in their home in a double murder that remains unsolved.
It seems to just be more and more frequent. I've had a carjacking.
Wow. Okay, so you're hearing residents of Chicago explaining of carjackings, shootings, increase in murder. And now Illinois, this was 1 year. Again, guys, 1 year. The Safety Act was introduced in January 2021 by the state's legislature. It was not signed into effect into law until 2023.
Over here in front of my house, across the street, my neighbor got carjacked.
Proactive and preventive policing, intelligence-led policing. When you have extra people, you can address it more.
Leaders in many suburbs are often reluctant to talk about crime for fear it makes their community look bad. Here in Oak Park, when we requested an interview with police, a village spokesperson told us they would assess the value of appearing on camera. They then declined. Community safety is a priority. If there's no safety, then...
Chicago crime takes center stage. Now, this is coming. I know a lot of things have to do with the crime in Chicago, between the riots, the protestings, the shootings, everything else has been the police brutality. This was 8 months ago.
Chicago,
This was 8 months ago. CBS Chicago is the source. Crime and chaos is keeping tourists away, experts say. Again, a city in crisis. People were already complaining about the high rate of crime and rising crime in Chicago. We're talking about this because of the Safety Act, now in effect in the state of Illinois.
Chicago is a city in crisis right now, from the chaos we saw in downtown this past weekend to the rise in violent crime.
And CBS 2's Tara Molina has learned the combination is already impacting tourism numbers as we head into the summer. Tara joins us live downtown with the effort to turn the tide. Tara.
Erica, the recovery effort when it comes to hotel occupancy in Chicago has been much slower than we've seen in other U.S. cities, and now crime is making an impact on that, something we're told the city just can't afford. Chicago shines in the summer. It's when tourism numbers typically go up here for good reason. But when the picture picturesque is replaced by images like these from the weekend. Crime numbers near an all-time high in the Loop. For some, this great summer city loses its luster.
Now, think about this is another thing to consider here. Think about the number of petty crimes that are being committed and the increased amount of petty crimes. Homeless people, people that are out on the street, they don't have a place to stay. They commit a petty crime just to go to jail for the night. So they have 3 hots and a cot. The overpopulated jails, the overpopulated prisons and institutional facilities play a major role in this as well. So now with the Safety Act, I'm curious to see how many petty thefts, petty crimes will be committed. Will it go up? Will it go down?
Our main headwind right now is public safety.
Michael Jacobson is president of the Illinois Hotel and Lodging Association.
Unfortunately, we have seen both individual leisure travelers begin to cancel their hotel rooms for the next several weeks and months because of what they've been hearing on the news and what they've seen happening downtown. More concerning is we've even seen conferences pull out of Chicago altogether for other cities in the Midwest.
And that's after downtown hotels were pummeled by the pandemic. Thankfully, he says the recovery act,
which also played a role in the violent crime. People being locked up for 2 years on lockdown. Had to be careful what I say. So just 2 weeks ago, 13 armed robberies in Chicago. Just 2 weeks ago, 13 armed robberies. ABC 7 Chicago is the source if you would like to view the information for yourself.
Police passed through a Kenwood block that was one of many targeted by armed robbers over the weekend. The crime spree started in the 4600 block of South Woodlawn around 10:30 on Saturday night. Kenneth Sawyer's 16-year-old son and 2 of his friends were held up at gunpoint after a quick walk down the street to get some late-night snacks.
My son and 2 of his friends were coming back from Walgreens where they were accosted by 5 gentlemen. And they stole their coats, their telephones, and the young ladies' purses. So, like I said, they're very shaken up.
Within 2 hours late Saturday night and into early Sunday morning, police say there were 13 different incidents in the Kenwood and Bronzeville neighborhoods. Robbers drove up in a vehicle and stopped their victims as they were walking. Some residents are surprised because they say the neighborhood is relatively safe.
It's a lot of families, a lot of people who are maybe retired and things that established. So you don't see that much. But I guess, a lot of people are coming over in this area from over west, coming east to do these things. So I think we just got to, be safe and watch our backs.
According to Chicago Police Department data, armed robberies are up 15% over the last 12 months compared to the annual average. And while crime has taken center stage in the mayor's race, Kenneth Sawyer says it's time to put aside the rhetoric and all support each other to prevent anyone else from becoming a victim.
Officials in the city need our support. The police department needs our support. And neighboring communities and everyone who lives with them has to do their part. You have to be vigilant. You have to report things that you see that are suspicious. And you just have to take an active role in the community.
Police say.
Okay, once again, ABC 7 Chicago is the source of that information. 13 armed robberies within the past 2 weeks alone in Chicago. What you're looking on the screen right now is Illinois' Unsafety Act. This is an article that was written by DJ Eyes on the News. After the 2020 death of George Floyd, let's skip down here, the Safety Act. Again, this is coming from an author, so I'm going to shout them out right here. The source CJ by Paul Marano. This was published on October 17th, 2022. The Safety Act mandates changes to police training and certification, use of force, use of body cameras, and the right of detainees. Its most controversial measure, the virtue of eliminating cash bail, won't take effect until January 1st, but the state's attorney and law enforcement groups are already warning that the law was rushed and is poorly worded. To paraphrase Nancy Pelosi, it's another case of passing a bill to find out what is in it. So an experimental bill. Oh, reminds you of anything, guys? The experimental bill where this could be leading to the requirement of police body cam footage not due to be fully implemented until 2025. The requirement for police body cameras not due to be fully implemented until 2025. For instance, outlines a complex set of rules for which officers may have body cameras turned on or off. Law enforcement sources claim that the rules are too convoluted to work on the streets, setting up criminal court challenges over footage that will inevitably be deemed missing. The law's architects also overlooked the administrative aspects of the body cam requirements. For instance, defense attorneys for wealthy clients or even motivated public defenders can clog courts with requests for body cam footage from any officer who might have been at the scene. Identifying who was there and what time can take hours of investigation. Well, of course, Trey Nichols, prime example. You saw how that cop centered his camera, pointed it down as they were beating that poor boy to death. So this part of the Safety Act, I do agree with. I do. There's two parts to every story, and there's a lot of dirty cops out there. To be clear, body cam programs are genuinely a good idea in most cases. The footage works to police advantage, supporting prosecutions and exonerating cops accused of misconduct. Body cams can also make it clear when police have abused their powers, such as we saw in Trey Nichols. But implementing of body cam programs without careful consideration creates as many problems as it solves. The Safety Act also mandates that detainees be allowed to make 3 phone calls from each location. Okay, that's a good thing. At which they are held. Yeah, I think that you should be able to make 3 phone calls. More than 1 phone call, right? That's only fair. Individuals in police custody are at minimum moved from precinct to court location for arraignment and neither released or handed off to corrections. But there might be other stops along the way, particularly in a complex case in which the arrestee must be debriefed or becomes a cooperator. The requirement that the arrestee gets 3 phone calls at every location is a logistic nightmare. This person described. Their words, not mine. This person's words, Mr. Paul Morano. This is who wrote this article. Published October 17th, 2022. But there might be other stops along the way in complex case in which the arrestee must debrief or become a cooperator. The requirement that the arrestee just got to get 3 phone calls at every location is a logistic nightmare. This person goes on to say, add the requirement that calls involving counsel to be unmonitored, and you have new opportunities for witness intimidation, as well as another barbaric loophole that defense and civil lawyers can exploit. Finally, there is a bail reform aspect itself, which is stirred the most controversy. First and foremost, because no one is quite sure what it says, no one section mandates that all defendants, quote, shall be presumed eligible for release unless prosecutors present, quote, clear and convincing, end quote, evidence that the arrestee is a threat to the safety of a specific identifiable person. This continues a narrow, defined danger standard, but the bill's language also appears to immute a certain and subset of crimes for which only a risk of flight can be used to deny release. Those crimes include aggravated battery, robbery, burglary, aggravated DUI, kidnapping, homicide, and all drug offenses. Aggravated battery, robbery, burglary, aggravated DUI, kidnapping, vehicular homicide, and all drug offenses. Critics claim that all of these crimes, the Safety Act has removed the danger standard and precluded the judge's discretion. Not so, says a spokesperson for Governor Pitzner of Illinois, office Jordan Jordan, who states that there is no such thing as a non-detainable offense. In those charged with most serious crimes, which are non-probationable, can also be detained for risk to public safety. So can the dangers standard be used to enumerate crimes? No. No one seems sure. This is not an academic question. If Pitzner's office is wrong, hundreds of thousands of current inmates incarcerated for enumerated crimes might still be released once they file bail applications from prison. So the Safety Act also releases certain criminals that up to a judge. Again, the judge has the last say whether you can go out on cash bail, no cash bail, or not. But it even goes on to say that people charged with these crimes, right here, those charges include aggravated battery, robbery, burglary, aggravated DUI, kidnapping, vehicular homicide, and all drug offenses. What's going to happen to the people that were previously locked up with those crimes? Is it going to be a case-by-case scenario? Or are they all qualifying for no cash bail? Law enforcement has criticized other parts of the law that position it firmly within the defund the police narrative, end quote. This raises another possible repercussion that the law's authors seem not to have considered. For all of this to work, police departments will need to be staffed. bringing the conversation back to police are overworked and understaffed and underpaid too. The police department in Chicago, the state's largest city, is already experiencing major staffing issues since the start of the defund era, making the job even less attractive for recruits and veterans eligible to retire. It is not a recipe for public safety. To call it the Safety Act is a sick joke. We already know how this will play out. In New York State, a similar array of criminal justice reforms. Again, this is not only, you may be watching this and thinking, well, I don't live in Illinois, so this is not going to affect me. Texas has already introduced laws similar to Illinois Safety Act. Washington, D.C., New York, New Jersey, and some other state up there has already been operating like this. It's just Illinois has taken it a step further. They're really testing the waters here, guys. That's why everyone's saying, oh, it's a purge. It's the purge law. People's comparing it to be the purge law. Now, whether you think it's the purge law, I'm not here to convince you otherwise. I'm just here to stir the pot, as what I usually do. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts and opinions on this. The last thing that Chicago needs, he wrote, in particular, is measures that will further erode public safety and confidence. Unless this reform is itself reformed, the Safety Act will make everything worse in Illinois, according to Paul Marano. So back on December 6th, 2022. December 6th, 2022, Governor Pitzner quietly signs revisions to the Safety Act, which eliminates cash bail. Less than a month before those arrested in Illinois will no longer have the option of posting bail as a condition of release while waiting trial. Governor J.B. Pitzner quietly signed a package that makes significant changes to the law taking effect in January. In a press release Tuesday afternoon, Pitzner said the bill HB 1095 addressing misinformation and makes clarifications that, quote, that uphold the principle we fought to protect, to bring an end to a system where the wealthy, violent offenders can buy their way out of jail, while less fortunate nonviolent offenders will wait for pretrial. Or wait for trial. And I get that. There's criminals that have money. Just because someone can bail themselves out of jail doesn't mean that they're not a criminal. There's many wealthy, rich murderers. There's wealthy rapists. There's wealthy arsons. People accused of being offenders. There's also people that are less fortunate, a polite way of saying they're broke. They can't get out of jail because they don't have the $500 to post cash bond. The changes, and again, I'll say this again, people. If you're just tuning in, I don't think you should be held in jail because you can't afford to get out for non-violent offenses, something petty. I don't think people need to be sitting in jail over a traffic ticket or speeding for months because they don't have $500 to bail themselves out with. That was the intentions of the Illinois Safety Act, but there's a lot of loopholes that give people opportunities to offend again, and it does pose a potential threat to public safety. That's why state leaders are talking about it this way. The changes approved last week by Democratic members of the Federal or General Assembly in the fourth follow-up bill for the Safety, Accountability, Fairness, and Equity Today Act. The Safety Act. Safety, Accountability, Fairness, and Equity Today Act, or SAFETY Act, which was signed into law 2021. So it was signed into law back in 2021. It was not effective until January 1st of this year. Unless, of course, you live in 6 counties in Illinois, which has opposed this law and called it unconstitutional, this bill. But the wide range of Illinois, for the rest of Illinois, this is currently in effect. Backers, oh my God. I'm about to wrap this up, people. I'm not used to talking this long. I've been talking all morning. Backers of the Safety Act argued that there was never a case, but argued to the amendments that spell out the forcible felonies for which a judge can deny pretrial release. They include first and second degree murder, predatory, I don't know why it's so hard for me saying that word, predatory criminal sexual assault of a child, aggravated criminal sexual assault, and criminal sexual assault, robbery, and burglary. Wow. Where this is use of force against another person, residential burglary, home invasion, and vehicular invasion, among other. So they're arguing that the judge, again, it's a case-by-case scenario. The judge is going to have the last say. If you were accused of one of these crimes, you probably don't qualify. Any of these obvious crimes, I would sure hope that none of these people, anyone accused of sexual assault of a minor, second-degree murder, and home invasion, burglary, robbery, using a deadly weapon would not get out without cash bail. But what about the people that, this is where the problem comes in, because if you allow these people to go out and do the same thing, if you even present that opportunity to them, they will eventually lead up to being a murderer, a RAP. You know where I'm getting this. This is how the majority of criminals operate. It starts out as small, petty offenses, and then it leads up to something more serious. Some of the state's attorneys and Republicans say that the list is too exclusionary and pressed for judges to have a wider discretion. The new changes also widen the definition by which a defendant could be kept in jail because they're deemed to be dangerous. Prior to Tuesday's amendments, only a defendant who seemed a, quote, real and present threat, end quote, to a specific person could be detained. With the changes, that widens to posing a threat to persons in the community. So, again, major problem here. Wow. I guess no one's going to come up and give commentary. You guys are pretty quiet this afternoon. So I'm going to be getting off here, but thank you for tuning in to Bandit's podcast. Once again, if you have any thoughts or commentary on the topics that I brought you this afternoon, sound them off in the comments below. If you have any suggestions on what you want covered in the next podcast, I'm always researching things to talk about. This is more than true crime. We talk more about true crime, more than true crime. This is not a true crime channel. I talk about a lot of things. But if you want to have something featured, you can always email serathicpathways@yahoo.com. You can also leave it in the comments below. Be sure to like the video on your way out and stay tuned for the next podcast. Thank you for watching.
This is not a test. This is your emergency broadcast system announcing the commencement of the annual purge sanctioned by the U.S. government. Weapons of Class 4 and lower have been authorized for use during the purge. All other weapons are restricted. Government officials of ranking 10 have been granted immunity from the purge and shall not be harmed. Commencing at the siren, any and all crime, including murder, will be legal for 12 continuous hours. Police, fire, and emergency medical services will be unavailable until tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. when the purge concludes. Blessed be our new founding fathers and America, a nation reborn. May God be with you all.